Well, it's actually the second week in a row that I hit the go button and then regretted not having some kind of special music ready. How are you tonight, John?
Oh, you better be careful because I got music ready.
Oh, really?
I got music ready. Yeah.
What do you got?
Music? How many notes are we allowed to play before we get a
Oh, yeah, no,
copyright?
let's not get into that. But, you know, it's almost
one note? Can you name this tune in one note? Let's say one note. That's it. That's all you get. Did you hear it?
No, but it's okay.
That's all you get.
Was that Paul Simon?
It's
Late in the evening?
From Shaft. Theme from
What is
Shaft.
Shaft. I totally missed it. I can't do it in one note. But listen, John, we're coming to the end of the year of 2022. Certainly one of the crappiest years so far in terms of the general temperament of the nation. But I do want to thank you and our audience. I think it's been an excellent year in terms of the work that you've been doing and the stories that we've been breaking on John Cullen Investigates. People are going to be able to watch that in just under 30 minutes when we go to our sponsor exclusive segment on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I've also been really enjoying Odyssey. I want to thank all the people who are signing up to Odyssey. And, I have added the membership function on Odyssey, and a lot of people are enjoying that. It's a great way for people to get into some of the legacy Crowdsource the Truth content, and you can watch the sponsor exclusive content. You just get onto Odyssey. You can go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and you tap on the membership tab, and you can become a member. And John, before we get into this sort of year in review show that you have planned a lot of stuff for, there's a story that's just come up. I have just heard of this guy pretty recently. I guess maybe I've seen him before. He's kind of like one of these Dan Bilzerian type guys who's driving all around in Bugattis and smoking cigars and talking about how to, bed women. And I mean, it was strange to me that he was antagonizing this 19-year-old girl. Then he's sitting there with this pizza. Everybody says that he was arrested because they were able to locate where he was based on this Jerry's pizza box. Now, I've stretched it out and inset it here so that we can read it. It just says it's the 25th anniversary. But this is weird to me. I mean, this guy, he's not exactly subtle. How is he going unnoticed in Bucharest such that the pizza is what's needed to catch him? But here's the stranger thing. First of all, he told Greta Thunberg that he has 33 cars. And that struck me right away. Because if you asked me how many cell phone cameras I have, it's I don't know, 8, 9. And if you told me it was 11, I'd be like, okay. I feel like if you had 33 cars, you might be like 30 or 35. You got to ask the guy who controls the garage because he's constantly selling them and getting new ones or whatever. 33 really stuck in my mind, and it just doesn't make sense to me that they would need this pizza to be able to catch the guy. So I looked up this Jerry's Pizza website. It looks like a regular pizza place, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but look what I noticed, John. How do you like the phone number? People will say this is a conspiracy theory, but it's just me looking at this, so I don't know what the conspiracy would be. And I didn't put this website here. I didn't choose that phone number. There's a lot of 33s in it. And I don't know, the whole thing just seems weird to me. I'm not defending this guy, Tate, whatever his name is. I don't know a damn thing about him other than he does seem like a jackass, on video. He's very braggadocious. How do you feel about this, John?
Tell you the truth, I don't really know who the guy is. I think maybe he's a wrestler, like a UFC.
UFC, yeah.
No clue.
I think I saw him on Joe Rogan or something, or some podcast like that, but he's a UFC.
I saw him on a podcast with Tucker Carlson.
Really?
And Tucker Carlson was asking questions, and he's like an alpha male guy defending the alpha male thing. And that's all I know of the guy. And so, them rounding him up for trafficking today as we're recording the show. I don't know. I don't think that's one of the 10 biggest stories of the year for sure.
No, definitely
I barely
not.
know the guy.
but
Yeah,
just
I
weird.
barely know who the guy is. Yeah.
And the thing is, the fact that they made such a big deal out of it with little Miss Greta, when there's so many other very important things going on, the FBI taking over Twitter, the war in Ukraine escalating like crazy, the economy dumping, the border just wide open, gang members and who knows who coming in. They just arrested some MS-13 guy who had like murdered somebody or something. It's pretty nuts, John. What have you prepared for us tonight?
Well, we're going to take a look back at sort of the stories of the year. The first couple things we're going to look at are recent. So things that are in the news right now, because they are kind of top 10. And then we're going to go back and look at January of 2022, February of 2022, March, April of 2022. What were we covering then? And I think you and the audience are both going to be astounded.
Yeah. Probably biolabs. We were way ahead.
Well, that's kind of the thing. It's almost like we could take a year off
and catch up.
The rest of them might catch up.
Right.
You'll see. It's kind of wild. So if you want, why don't we share a couple of these slides with the YouTube audience? And then when we go patron only, I mean, I have so much prepared for tonight's show because it's it's a retrospective of the year. So there's a lot of content. When you look back, we did 51 shows. The last time we didn't do a show was a year ago. It was Christmas Day, Friday the 25th. Turned out to be Christmas Day. And we're like, nobody's going to be watching. So we did. That's the last time we didn't do a show. So we did a show every day and every Friday of 2022. So I went through the show notes that I prepare and kind of cherry picked some of the best content. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with the audience tonight.
Well, so you've got Colby here. He would be a good topic for us to dive into. I'm sure you're aware of his final kayak trip.
No, in fact, I think that would be a great show to dig into. We should do a show called Kayaking with Colby, Canoeing with Colby.
So, you do not want to do that.
Let's do that. Let's do it next week.
No, I'll do the show.
Canoeing with Colby next week.
I'll do the show, but you don't want to go canoeing with. Well, he's dead.
No, clearly not. Especially probably now. He's probably smells. But this quote of his that we spoke about for the last couple of weeks is verified, and it was verified by somebody that and
Barbara Honegger.
No, excuse me, that was the other quote.
Right.
All right.
That was when everybody thinks everything is false. That was the quote that she confirmed.
That's right. And we need to get her on the show.
I emailed her. She didn't write back. She's probably the holidays and everything.
All right. All right. But the net of this is what we're learning after Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter is that the infiltration of the social media companies by former, and I use that term very loosely, former members of the intelligence community has been rampant, apparently. And if you want to go to the next slide, we probably want to go through these quickly.
You didn't want the biggest news from Twitter right now that they're running out of toilet paper? Forget the FBI. The New York Times is worried about the toilet paper.
Yeah, of course. All right. But last week's show, when we went with our patrons, we were talking about this story that came out of Daily Mail or Mail UK, whatever it is. And they were documenting, they basically went to, what's that social media site that people use?
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So they went to LinkedIn and they basically queried the various different intelligence agencies and the various different social media companies and found dozens of people that used to work at the NSA and Facebook, or used to work at the FBI and Instagram or something like that, right? So they were finding all these combinations of people that, and we were kind of wondering, why would you need 60 former FBI people working at Twitter? That seems a bit heavy-handed. Is Twitter being used by Al-Qaeda and ISIS to
Well, probably,
tweet
but
disaster. I mean,
they're not
how
looking
much?
at those guys.
Like shouldn't they keep that over at the FBI? I mean, do you have to go work at Twitter to catch these guys? Or I don't know. And you need 60 guys to do it. It just seems a little heavy-handed. So as we were looking into all this, this reporting that came from Mint Press and Alan McLeod, we were focusing on this last week, and I think that this is kind of stunning, and this is certainly a top 10 development for the year.
If not all time.
Why don't we? Yeah, and in fact, if you jump ahead to the photo of the guy, again, we only covered this with our patrons last week, but to me, this is stunning. Aaron Berman, who works at Facebook, used to be the briefer to the president from the CIA. The morning brief. Mr. President, here's what's happening today in the Sudan. Here's what's happening in Yemen. Here's, we got our guys back from North Korea that weren't supposed to be there. This is the CIA guy giving the president the morning briefing. And now he works at Facebook. So this was the research that came from Mint Press and McLeod. So Alan McLeod. So tip of the hat to him.
There's a Twitter user named Truth Ninja who has been doing similar work and has found, I don't know if it's a he or a she, but even more people, and it's truly stunning. And so I've been doing a little bit of searching. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but we've seen this photograph many times. People who've read my crowdsourcethetruth.medium.com expose on the Twitter coup, I lay out the evidence that causes me to believe that Adam Sharp introduced Barack Obama to Twitter, and then Barack Obama introduced the U.S. government to Twitter. This individual, well, first of all, this is Jack Dorsey right here, all the way on the right, looking very young and pre-Osama bin Laden days. But this guy standing right here is Alexander McGilvray, who was the Twitter general counsel at the time of this photograph in 2011, and then became the first CTO of the United States government and was working in the White House. I've also received information from a viewer about a girl, was her name Lori Stanton? I gotta look that up. But there is an amazing crisscross of lawyers going from the White House to Twitter, from Twitter to the White House, from the FBI to Twitter, from the FBI to Brookings Institution. We've only just started to learn about this, and it is, I think, the biggest scandal in the history of the country, John.
Well, the aspect of it that you're documenting goes back to the formation, because you're talking about when Barack Obama joined Twitter. I think today he's still the most followed person on Twitter, right? I think he has the most number of followers, more than anybody else. And again, every time I seem to see him with Adam Sharp, it looks like they either just finished doing the tango or they're just about to begin doing the tango. I can't really tell, but certainly Adam Sharp is rather fond of Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And again, to the point here is that you're documenting such an early aspect of this. You look at, but go back to the photo you had with Jack Dorsey, pre-beard. I mean, is Dorsey even 30 in this photo? I don't even think he's 30 years old.
Yeah, I don't know.
In the photo,
where did I put it? I think
you just had the photo with.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is Dorsey even 30 years old in this photo?
We would have to look that up. This was 2011. I don't know how old he is right now, but he does not look 30. You're right. He looks very young.
Well, it's 11 years ago. So, 11. I don't know how old he is now, but even if he's 40 now, I don't think he's 50. So we'll find out. We'll have to look up Jack Dorsey and when he was born.
Jack Dorsey is 46 right now. So 11 years ago, I guess he was 35.
35. So it's a 35-year-old Jack Dorsey, clean-shaven with Barack Obama, and your buddy from the Emmy Awards.
Yeah. Where's my mouse here?
So,
there we go. Yeah. Right. So we'll see what's going on with that.
Again, this is, they're very quick to talk about fascism, but fascism is when the government and these corporations are working together, and and never mind dancing the tango together, hip to hip, big smile, big smile, big smile. So, all right, so let's go to this next slide, because one of the important elements, we were talking about this at the end of last week's show with our patrons, is we talk about root cause analysis. And a lot of people have strong opinions about Zach Voorhees, right? So some people like him, some people love him, some people think he's a nut, some people think all of the above, some people have no opinion, don't even know who he is. But Zach Voorhees is the guy that was working at Google and came out with a whole bunch of documents that shared them with the world and said all these things are like new search filter things and all this new misinformation stuff. And he shared it and he quit or was thrown out, whatever. And he came on the show.
Yeah.
But the net of it, like the needle in the haystack from the whole interview, was something that he said, which was that it all started the day after the Vegas shooting.
Right. Right.
Susan calls an all-hands meeting. And and at least half of the stuff was Stephen Paddock related. Las Vegas shooting related.
Yeah, keywords he was showing us.
Exactly. So again, regardless of what anybody thinks of Zach, at the end of the day, it's that little tiny tidbit of information that the day after the Vegas shooting was the day all these new rules and regulations and filters and search things and whatever came into being out of nowhere. Now, we don't yet know if this thing that we've seen at Twitter, it's who knows if anybody works at Google or YouTube that ever worked at the FBI. We have no idea. Probably not, right?
Wait.
So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Well, we don't know if there's anybody that works or worked at YouTube, Google, that used to work at the FBI, because we're not looking at their emails. We're looking at Twitter's emails.
But wait, we do.
Well,
but
we don't want to pee in the punch bowl at the guests at the host's party, right? We're on YouTube at the moment, so we don't want to.
Got it. Okay, so we'll reveal who this person is. This is a big deal, actually. This is a person that was somebody who knew this person when she was a little girl, contacted me and said all this stuff. And I said, well, then I went and looked her up, and everything the person said was true. But you're right. We should talk about this on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. But let's stay with the slides. We've still got a few minutes here.
All right, so let's jump ahead, because what we're seeing also right at this moment is this baton zone, this lame duck period between an election and when the people who were elected are taking over, which is next week. And the story here is that the Republicans are going to demand testimony from Biden officials and experts on the COVID-19 origins and the virus research in Wuhan.
Yeah.
So again, that's right. That's like inspecting the pit bull and ignoring the Kodiak bear.
Right.
Why would you, what about the other virus? What about the blue one? Right. So why would we not want to investigate that aspect of the story if we have this evidence? So this is what we were sharing with the audience in January of 2022.
Oh, yeah.
Was this data. Now, this is Australia.
So it says it's the 9th day of January, because Australia, they write it backwards.
I believe that's right. And so what this is showing is that in 2019, Australia had an unbelievable outbreak of influenza, according to the WHO. We're looking at the WHO's website. And then when COVID arrives, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah. That's weird, right?
Now, this is what we were talking about a year ago. The next slide, we showed that in Argentina, the same thing happened.
Yeah.
Now, Argentina is relevant because it's also in the Southern Hemisphere. So we're looking at Australia and Argentina, two southern hemisphere countries that had massive influenza outbreaks in the summer of 2019, right before October, right before the Wuhan Games.
But is summer in the southern hemisphere the same as winter here for flu?
It's when it's coldest, right? So it snows in July and August in Argentina.
Wow. Oh yeah, people probably go skiing there.
They do. Yeah, the jet setting group does that. So the other aspect of the story that I've been reporting on since the beginning of the year, and probably before that, is that at the beginning of the COVID outbreak, the United States had already been experiencing 4,000 deaths a week from PNI, pneumonia and influenza, which is what the CDC calls influenza deaths. They call it PNI. And this was historic. This was 4,000 plus people a week, every week from the first week of January through February, through March, and into the first week of April as COVID starts to take hold. And while all the attention shifts to COVID, I'm mesmerized by this blue thing. I can't take my eyes off it. And everybody wants to talk about the green thing. And I wanted to talk about the blue thing. And I didn't let go of the blue thing because the blue thing is influenza. And so if you go to the next slide, this is what our patrons are going to see. This is the USA influenza specimens 2017, 18, 19, 20 COVID.
It's unbelievably conspicuous. I mean, this is their data, and there it is.
Correct.
And then people will say, oh, the data, you can't trust the data. But your point is, and has always been, it's not a matter of us trusting this data. This is the data that's presented and utilized to create public policy. So we're auditing it for all the people who don't want to trust it.
Correct. Correct. And that's what you have to do. If you don't audit the data, you don't provide evidence that there's something fishy. In other words, if nobody looks at this, it's a tree falling in the woods and there's nobody there to hear it fall.
Yeah.
So apparently, all of this that I've been reporting on Twitter to date must have been suppressed. Because, as you said, it's so obvious. You don't need a PhD in epidemiology
to tell when it's
look
zero.
At this and say, what the hell happened there? What happened?
Yes, correct.
Right?
It's a data anomaly, undoubtedly. Someone's doing something.
Well, in January of 2022, we were, again, reviewing with the audience the fact that I wrote that white paper back in October of 2020 saying, hey, wait a second, influenza disappeared in all of these countries between weeks 11 and 14? There weren't that many COVID cases in those early weeks. The spread wasn't that wide. In fact, back then, Beijing didn't have 10 dead. Shanghai didn't have 10 dead. Hong Kong didn't have 10 dead. But influenza just disappears from all of these countries. And it turns out it was over 100 countries. And I found that to be somewhat remarkable. So if you go to the next slide, again, we were showing this to the audience. This is February 2nd, 2022.
And this has got to be our last one, John, because we've got to make our way over to the sponsor-exclusive segment on Subscribestar.com and Patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and also on Crowdsource.
We had a heck of a year. We had Dr. J.J. Couey come on the show and talk with us. I was fortunate enough to have Steve Kirsch on the show as a guest. And one of the things I talked about was how the CDC has been tracking these influenza P&I deaths for years. For years. That's the blue chart you see. And all of a sudden, these influenza P&I deaths go to the moon. And it begs the question, how would you hide one pandemic if you didn't have another one?
In Fauci's hands.
So these are P&I deaths going all the way back to 2013 in the USA. And those massive peaks on the right just happened to happen at the same time as the COVID outbreak. So my thesis is that you can't hide the blue pandemic without the green pandemic.
So, John, we're pushing up on the schedule here. We've got to make our transition over to the sponsor exclusive segment on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Don't forget about odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. And if you have not yet read the Twitter coup on crowdsourcethetruth.medium.com, I urge you to read that. It is so loaded with potent evidence. I just don't see how the hypothesis can be wrong. If you see a way that it could be, please tell me. But we'll see everybody in less than 5 minutes on Subscribestar, Patreon, and Odyssey. Join us for this year-end close.